We're back. Vacation's over. It's almost Christmas. It's a festive, united happy hour with Pauly and Joe coming right up.
I've got to say, Paulie, I absolutely love that new intro. That's the first time I've seen it because obviously you tried to show me just before the show and it didn't quite work, but I've seen it there. I feel all French as well all of a sudden. It's wonderful. Some nice little outtakes there as I'm having a laugh and having a happy hour. And to be honest with you, Paulie, since we started doing this happy hour show, there's been a few times, probably more often than not, it's not been very happy, has it? So actually, it's nice to do a show with you today, and we're going to be doing these shows on a Tuesday and a Thursday moving forward. Obviously, this week there won't be a show Thursday because we're celebrating Christmas. It's Christmas Eve, so that won't be happening this week. But as of hopefully next week or the week after, we will be up to 2 shows. So thank you to everyone for joining us. And like I say, I'm delighted to be joined by Paulie. Paulie, you've had a little holiday of your own the last few days. How's it been for you? How are you?
It's good. I kind of disagree with you, though. The purpose of this show, what the original concept was, every time things do go into a little bit of a dump, you and I would be here to restore balance to the universe and tell you why you're overreacting and being an idiot for doing so. And since we started, I believe we started the week after we lost to Arsenal. So maybe we lost to Istanbul, and maybe we started. I don't remember if we started on a Tuesday or a Thursday, but since we started, United have not lost a Premier League match. So it's been there was one, I would say, giant hiccup and little slip in there, maybe, but otherwise it's been all good.
Yeah, I think there was a PSG game did we do one after Leipzig? I'm not sure. I can't remember.
We did one. Our little vacation was right before Leipzig, where we spent the entire time talking about Paul Pogba instead of talking about Leipzig because that's where the distraction was. The distraction.
Yeah, that's been the thing, hasn't it? I think some of the topics that we've talked about on the show have surrounded players like Paul Pogba, and that's at times been a little bit of a negative narrative. That's obviously what's been in the media, and also with the manager as well. We've had to talk about things like that, the criticism that he's got, the criticism that the team's got on a whole for some of the form that they showed this year. But Paulie, let's get into it. People who watch the show know that we normally kick off with what's on social media. So let's have a look at that now, shall we?
Oh, we didn't fire. Oh, the video's not. We're having more.
Right. That was meant to be a nice little.
We got it.
Hey, there we go. We're a few teething problems, but we got there. Yeah, we promise that'll be smoother as we go on. I don't know what happened there. Technology is a wonderful thing at times, and then other times it's awful. So, what is going on social media, Paulie? I think this whole thing about we've seen Sky Sports, we've seen even the radio in England, Talk Sport is a channel. A lot of people have sort of been quick to give Leeds praise for the fact that they won 6-2.
They did not win.
Yeah, they lost 6-2. For praising the way that they played, the way that they kept going at United. But actually, when you look at United's side of that result, people have almost then seemed to purposely try to play it down. So what do you make of all this, Paulie? And it's interesting there you've got Gary Neville, who's being praised, obviously a Manchester United man. What is all this about?
Yeah. The praise for Bielsa comes from the fact that he's just going for it, running and gunning. This is how I play. I'm unapologetic about it. I'm not going to change. People have thrown out the word pragmatism and everything. Maybe you should think about doing that, when you go ahead and when you have a trip to Old Trafford or Anfield or something. And I've seen a lot of arguments against that. The Athletic ran a great piece today from an author who is a Swansea fan and said, look, I've gone with my son and stood on the and stood in the away end at Wembley when we played Tottenham and cheered for a 0-0 draw because we got the result and it's avoiding and we're trying to fight relegation. He goes, and it's boring. It sucks. And he goes, and then we went down into the championship and we started attacking again and the football was better and it was more fun. And yeah, you want to be in the Premier League, but you want, football at the end of the day is entertainment. And so I full credit to Bielsa for, he goes and he's not afraid of you. He's
the biggest praise I can give him, Paulie, and I think I said it in the group chat at the time, and I think I said to you, we were 4-1 up at half-time, and I've got to be honest with you, I think that's the first time I've been 4-1 up as a Man United fan at half-time and actually not felt confident that we'll necessarily win. I could have quite easily have seen Leeds score 3 goals, or at least make it uncomfortable for us in the second half. I mean, normally, if we'd have been 4-1 up at home to someone like West Brom, I'm quite a pessimistic fan, but even I would probably say that that's game over. But, even against Leeds, the nature of that first half, the nature of the amount of chances they had, the biggest compliment I can pay them is at 4-1 at half time, I did still think United might need at least one more. So, and that's pretty.
It did get a little nervy because they scored right before halftime and got another chance. So, those last 3 or 4 minutes got a little nervy. But there's so much praise for Bielsa. And look, I give him credit for I'm not going to come in and just try to close up shop and keep my team up. We're gonna play my way. We're going to entertain. And as a neutral, it's so much fun to watch Leeds because this is what they do. The issue with Bielsa and when everybody's tripping over themselves to give him praise, what I don't understand is you have to see the other side. And the other side was there was no plan B here. So when he went down 4-0 real quick, or when this game almost became a non-contest after 3 minutes, United were able to just stay with their plan because they didn't have to worry about an adjustment being made because there is no adjustment to be made. And that's the thing. This was not, you get into an open game with Leeds, United are going to have the advantage because we have better players. What's going to happen? Yeah. Leeds, they lack some talent, but this wasn't like, Bruno, Rashford, and Martial just blew the doors off of them. This was, we beat you with Scott McTominay and Victor Lindelof and Daniel James, and we did it. It was a tactical. I don't want to say tactical masterclass and masterstroke, but this was a tactical game plan that we executed to perfection. Leeds like to man mark you. Calvin Phillips is your lone holding midfielder in a 4-1-4-1 formation. So his job is guard the middle, or he's the guy protecting the back four. But his job is also man mark Bruno Fernandes. So if Bruno Fernandes.
Let me ask you this, Paul. People have been praising Bielsa. This is what the topic's all about, and even you're in praise of Bielsa. But to be a good coach, and a good coach, is a good coach somebody who can impose such a style that it doesn't matter who they play against, it will be successful? Or is a good coach someone that can recognize that actually their style is probably not quite right for this game and they are able to adapt? Because what I saw was Leeds determined, and to be honest, Bielsa made no secret of the fact. He said in his pre-match press conference that he was going to play his way and he wasn't going to change. But for me, when you look at our attacking front four, Paulie, and when they essentially go man-to-man like you've just said, against that front four, for me, that is just suicide. There's too much pace and too much fluidity in our front four for people to go man-to-man. So this praise that Bielsa's getting, is it fair, or actually is it poor coaching, the fact that he didn't recognise that Man United, this Manchester United team, of all teams in the Premier League, is just probably the worst team to play that system against?
No, Joe, you asked a really good question there. And I actually just wrote about this my weekly tactical analysis that like got posted, I don't know, like 3 minutes ago. But I always laugh when it's like the Solskjaer doesn't have tactics narrative has kind of gone away. The people that spewed that narrative have kind of given up, but well, they haven't given up. They have shifted the conversation now away from Solskjaer doesn't have tactics to he doesn't have an identity. He doesn't have a style. And I always laugh when people say, oh, well, you look at Klopp, you look at Guardiola. First of all, Guardiola changes things up in the Champions League all the time. And it's probably his detriment. Klopp has a style. Yes. But then they'll be, oh, look at, Chris Wilder at Sheffield. Okay. Well, and look at Bielsa at Leeds. And here's the thing about that. When you have a set style, everybody knows how you're going to play. And now it becomes easy to plan against that. It's less easy now when you're going up against Liverpool, who are really good, or City and Pep, who are really good. Then what you need to do is you need to develop the perfect game plan against them, and you need your players to execute it, and you need to just rely on the fact that maybe those guys are going to have an off day. Like, 2011 Barcelona, they didn't care what you were going to do. They were going to play their game, and they were going to get away with it because they were really good. And this current iteration of Liverpool, the same thing. They're going to play their game, and more often than not, they're getting away with it because they're really good. But everybody else, I mean, we saw Sheffield, what were they, 8th, 7th last season for the first half?
It shows it here, Paulie. I think to be able to have a style that you can force upon every team, you need to be able to have the squad.
You need to be good.
Yeah, he took Phillips off in the first half at half time because I think he thought he was having a poor game. Same with Click, but whether they're having good games or not, those two players in particular are integral to the way that Leeds want to play and their style. And when they don't play well, this is what happens, sort of thing. And then you saw the half-time substitutes, and you just thought decent players, but they're not the and it's going to be difficult for them. They needed another Phillips and Click to be able to come on and give them the same or two players completely different that allowed him to change system and play a completely different way in the second half.
Yeah, and just like I was saying, when like I said, Sheffield last year, they came with a new style, new tactics. They were 7th, 8th, and then the second half of the year they got significantly fewer points, and then they struggled in Project Restart. And this season, they have 2 points because teams have figured it out. And they know this is how you're going to play versus when people complain, I don't know how United are going to play. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's bad. Look, sometimes we think we think Chelsea are going to play a certain way. So we put out a team to counter that with McTominay and Fred and Mata, and Chelsea, they went in a different direction. And now the two things, they don't work. They don't mesh and it looks bad. But sometimes another team comes in and thinks United are going to play this way, and we come out and play a completely different, I don't know what Leipzig was pairing for us 5-0 at Old Trafford, but we came out in a diamond that we had never come out with before, and we thrashed them. So
another example of this, Paulie, is probably look at how United, for 3 games running, have set up against PSG in the Champions League. There comes a point when it becomes predictable to PSG, the players, to Tuchel, and that's why they adapted at Old Trafford and they managed to find a way around us because they just got used to that McTominay and Fred pivot, the way that United are going to sit off them and try and counter-attack. It took them 2 or 3 games, but like you're saying, when you play that way often enough, sooner or later, teams will work it out.
Yeah, and there is the argument that, you look at the Bielsa team and you look at Hasenhüttl and you look at these guys and their players are so well drilled. They know exactly what they're going to do. And there's certainly an argument for that. That's a very good thing. But we can't, in the last 3 games, so that's Leeds, Sheffield, and who did we play before that? Manchester City. We played a 4-2-3-1 in all 3 games. We played a different 4-2-3-1 in each of the 3 games. Against City, we were playing with Pogba on the left, and basically out of possession, we were falling into a 4-4-2 with Bruno and Pogba on the wings and Mason Greenwood and Rashford up top. And then against Sheffield, everybody really kept their shape. Matic dropped into the back 3 a lot more. And then against Leeds, it was we played with the front four just completely interchanging the entire time. And everybody in all 3 games knew exactly what they were supposed to do, even though it was 3 very different styles. So when people say, oh, we change it up too much and the players don't know, then at this point, we have seen them do this. We did this last year against Tottenham and City in 3 days. We played the same formation, but we played 2 completely different game plans.
Yeah.
At this point, if the players don't know what to do, it's probably because they're not paying attention in the meeting than to the manager being able
to on the day. Yeah, exactly. I just want to bring these comments. Sorry, I just want to bring these ones up quickly, Paulie. No, sorry, I'm on the wrong one there. We've read that one. Hi guys, tuning in from Madrid. Was scared the Leeds come back to. Just say hello to Andy Cleary. Thanks for joining us, mate. I know we've got people watching this from all 4 corners of the world. We get people from all over the place watching. We do appreciate you watching.
4 corners of the world, Joe. You a flat earther?
No, I'm not. No, Galileo taught me not to do that, mate. But you know what I mean. That's what we say. But like I say, if you are enjoying the video, guys, do give it a like. Do subscribe to Kwest. Once the Christmas celebrations are out the way, we will be coming at you twice a week. And I just want to move it on slightly now, Paulie, to this. This one. Watching the first 2 goals, it looked like something that was drilled in training. Now, before you respond to that, I want to turn it over now and look at United. Because, like I say, the way that people have approached United winning this 6-2 as opposed to Leeds losing it 6-2 is that, Leeds defensively gave them a charge. United, people are still picking up on the fact that actually they conceded 2 goals and they could have conceded more. The contrast is people are all of a sudden saying that, don't get excited, you're not title challengers. Well, nobody's saying that. So why are you suggesting? Anyway, people are starting to talk about United. But how much credit does Ollie need for that win? Or was it just a case of Leeds were so poor tactically on this occasion and defensively that anyone could have scored 6 against them on Sunday?
Ollie deserves a lot of credit. You cut me off from saying this before because that's your job to make the show flow better. But as I was saying, you have Calvin Phillips, who his job is to protect the back four. He's the lone holding midfielder, and his job is also to man mark Bruno Fernandes. If Bruno Fernandes goes left, he's got to go left. If Bruno Fernandes goes right, he's got to go right. So what did Bruno Fernandes do? Is defensively, he's playing as the 10 in that 4-2-3-1 formation, which makes it real easy. So that this way, Calvin Phillips knows exactly where Bruno Fernandes will be. And when Leeds give away the ball, he could find Bruno Fernandes real easily. And then what did Bruno Fernandes do? He went anywhere on the pitch that wasn't the middle because Calvin Phillips had to follow him. And then guess what? The middle's wide open, and that allowed McTominay was
this boy, here we go.
McTominay was the main benefiter. We saw it right away too. Is a minute in, McTominay already had a goal. So 30 seconds in, Rashford broke into the box and should have. I don't know how he didn't take a shot, but he didn't. But right after that, we saw McTominay just from deep, just make a run into the box. And that's something that you can do. We normally would not see our midfielders do that. Maybe Pogba does, but we don't even want them to so much because we want them to be, that's my doorbell, I'm sorry. We want them to be, responsible defensively. And McTominay goes and makes this reckless run into the box. Well, it's not reckless because they're man marking you. So, usually you make that run and the center backs will be like, hey, watch the run, and someone will pick him up. Yeah. But now there's a man back there that McTominay's not marking. Well, your man's going to follow you. Yeah. So even if you lose the ball, there's one fewer Leeds player coming back at you. So Bruno's opening up the middle by just getting out of the way and allowing McTominay. Fred did it a bunch of times. We saw Maguire do it. The 4th goal was started because Luke Shaw intercepted the ball and just ran 60 yards down the field and tried to play in Martial and was knocked out for a corner, and United scored on the corner. The 3rd goal was scored the same way. Bruno just came and pulled his man away. And, we saw this against Crystal Palace when McTominay didn't protect the middle and we let them run at Maguire and Lindelof the entire time. How that doesn't work. Well, it's the same thing. It didn't work. Like this was a great tactical ploy by Solskjaer to pull Phillips out of the middle and just open it up and basically tell McTominay or Fred, if one of you is back, the other one can go and make runs because they're going to follow you. And then we don't have to worry about them coming back. And McTominay takes advantage of all that space on the first goal with a beautiful, like he hit that so sweetly, like with the loop to the outside. It was a great finish. But then right away on the next one, it's a throw-in. That's a set piece. And we got McTominay making another run. Martial does well to find him. He has a beautiful first touch and then a simple tap-in finish. Boom. The next thing you know is it's 2-0. And that's what I was saying before is if you're Leeds, you got to watch out because there is no plan B. And very quickly it was discovered that United, this wasn't like, oh, McTominay, someone lost their man and McTominay got lucky real quick. This was tactical. This was planned. This was like meticulous planning. And the third goal also, Fred drives right up the middle. And then he plays in Martial and Leeds do a half-decent job defending it, but Bruno runs on the end of that ball and smashes it in. And, we saw Bruno Martial dropping into midfield and dropping out wide to the wings, and then Dan James was going to center forward. And why do you do that? Because
you can have all the tactics in the world, Paulie. For me on Sunday as well, it was about execution. And I thought all the players that played on Sunday, with maybe the exception of the defence at times, that still looked a bit shaky. But I think everyone, executed their plan to perfection. And I just want to come upon what Lucas said here. Look, I believe Bielsa did know that this was going to happen. But what he probably did think was that his players would be able to handle that and that it would... If he got dragged away, someone else would come in, or United probably wouldn't execute as well. Because let's be honest, managers have already said it this season. You don't know what you're going to get from United. I think Ralph Hasenhuttl, when he was asked about United, said, you just don't know what Manchester United are going to get. And then he got two different Manchester Uniteds in two halves, funny enough, in that game. And I think that's the same for Bielsa. I mean, Bielsa could play that way. And let's be honest, if United were having an off day yesterday or having one of their typical Old Trafford days this season, it might have worked and you could have seen Leeds winning that game. I was very worried about that. So I will, Bielsa probably knew what was coming. But when United are playing that well, there's a lot of difference, Paulie, between knowing what's coming and actually being able to deal with it. Because those front four, when they are fluid like that and they are flowing, they are quite emphatic. We've seen
their fluidity
was better teams and Leeds apart, haven't we?
Yeah, their fluidity was by design. Also, like Martial drops into midfield, Bruno comes over to the right, Dan James goes to the middle. Like, guess what happens now? Now the center back has to follow Martial. Phillips is following Bruno. Your left back is following James. Suddenly, you have your center back playing in midfield. Your midfielder is playing as your left back, and your left back's at center back. And you keep doing that, it's going to eventually create a mismatch, or it's going to create confusion. And if you look at the Dan James goal, when he comes running across the field and McTominay picks him out with that pass, you watch both center backs, neither one of them really think to pick him up because that's not their man. And there's just that much confusion, and boom, he gets, you watch him, like one backs off and the other one just lets him run right by him. And that, Mike, look, Lokish had that comment before. It's hard that you had up. It's hard to imagine if Bielsa hadn't thought about Phil. Yeah, I agree with you there. And Ollie figured out a way to exploit that. My concern, if I'm Leeds, is Frank Lampard a couple weeks ago figured out how to exploit that. Chelsea were better against Leeds than United were. They created more and better chances than United did. It was one of the poorest displays of finishing you will ever see in a Premier League game that Chelsea only won that game 3-1. And twice in about 15 days now, your tactics have been completely torn to shreds by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Frank Lampard, two managers who are much closer to mediocre than they are great.
Yeah.
And that's the concern now. Like, this is why I'd be concerned if I'm Leeds. Again, you credit to Bielsa for sticking to his guns and not being afraid and always playing his style, but you're 14 games into the season, and if two teams have done this to you and other teams start looking and go, well, if that's the key to beating them, you could be in for a long season if teams start to figure it out.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just want to bring this one up as well, Paulie, because in the criticism of United as a whole as a team, I'll not say criticism, but let's say lack of praise for United as a whole of the team. There's also been, people have found this stick to poke Martial with because United once again scored 6 goals and Martial didn't get one of them. But NZZZ said, look, how good was Tony Marshall's hold-up play? Just needing to finish off those chances and get going. Look, again, instead of focusing on the fact that McTominay got 2 and the fact that the sign of a good team is when you've got goals all over the team, people are rather focusing on the fact that neither Martial or Rashford managed to get a goal in that game, Paulie. Like, where do you stand on this? Do you think if you score 6, it's better if it comes from... if 3 of them come from your striker and the other 3 are spread it around, or do you think it's better if everyone in the team scores? I mean, where do you stand on this? And is Martial, where he's playing in this United team, is it important that he scores goals, or is it like NZZ said, his hold-up play and his team play was very good on the day? What's more important for Martial?
Everything. Like I said before, this I don't read too much into the Martial and Rashford didn't score, because this was tactical. Like I said, they opened up the lanes for McTominay to run. They opened up the field for McTominay, for James to run into those positions. That the corner that Lindelof scored on was a set play. We saw them do it twice against City a week before, but that time it didn't. McTominay, it was just out of McTominay's reach, and he slid in at the back post and didn't get there. This time the flick on was better, but it was the exact same play. So. Yeah, 6 goals when you don't need, I'd rather the strikers not be scoring.
Yeah.
When we score 6, because McTominay is not going to score 2 goals in a game often. McTominay, maybe, if we're lucky, he scores another 4 goals this year. So that's 4 games where McTominay will contribute a goal. Like, we need goals, and we need our strikers to come up big, but like, we need them to come up big when it's 0-0, not so much when it's 5-0 or 5-2. His hold-up play, though, was fantastic. And part of the reason Dan James got picked was because of his ability to dribble in tight spaces. And Martial and Rashford, their dribbling in tight spaces was fantastic. But that you're going to get one-on-one situations against Leeds. And Solskjaer wanted, his dribblers out there. And Martial was fantastic in every area of the game. Dan James was too, and he rightly was rewarded with a goal. Martial wasn't, unfortunately. Martial did, though. It wasn't like he was doing everything and not getting in there. He got 4 chances. He had 4 shots that had a cumulative XG of 1. So the fact that he didn't, those are 4 really good chances. The fact that he did not come away with a goal here is astonishing, given his skill set. He's a very good finisher. If you're watching on YouTube, you could see right here, Martial is a player that typically converts about 25% of his chances. He's a player that typically outperforms his XG. He is very much not doing that this year. So maybe that's going to change, because, he's going to come back to his averages at some point this season. He is too talented not to. He's starting to get into those areas again. So maybe it's too late for him to hit the highs of 22, 24%. Maybe he only gets to 18% by the end of the season. But in order to do that, that means he's going to go on a tear at some point. And when that happens, like, United are going to be in a very good position, because at some point it's going to balance out and he's going to start putting the ball in the net, and he's going to catch fire when that happens.
Yeah, and this is a great part. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Hope you're well, buddy. Great point that he makes here. James and Rashford ran the channels incredibly well. They did. I mean, I looked at one point, Paulie, during that game, and I think up until about 10 minutes to go, I think the distance covered by both teams was pretty much the same. They were both on and around the 90 kilometre mark. And I said at the time in the group chat, I think the key to beating Leeds, and the manager said it since, is you must match them for work rate, for energy, for distance covered. And a lot of that distance that will have been covered will have been unselfish runs. I couldn't see the whole pitch on my TV screen, but I would imagine Rashford and James made countless runs into those channels, and they didn't even receive the ball. But what it did do is it sent a message to that Leeds defence that sooner or later, we're going to try one of these. We're making this run. It's a run with a purpose, obviously. If we don't receive it now, sooner or later we will, because there's players on the pitch here with the likes of Fernandes, Fred, and even McTominay at times. They can find these passes down the channel. It's a simple ball over. We have got pace.
Every single person, and that was the key. Like, every person just kept making runs because you have, it's not like
if you're running and taking a marker away from you, Paulie, you're creating space, aren't you?
Exactly. It's not like facing somebody where Rashford runs off the left wing and the left back shouts at the center back, "Hey, watch the runner," and the center back now picks him up. It's no, the left back, the right back is following you. So that's why we just kept seeing Fernandez, Martial, James. Everybody just kept making runs to create, to drag people away and create space. And that's why there was so much space up the middle for McTominay and Fred. And in the second half, James was carrying the ball from deep. So much space for them. And this was another key, we didn't play Paul Pogba in this game, which because we scored so quickly, they didn't even talk about it during the commentators barely spoke about it. But you don't need to, because usually I would say, oh, you want Pogba in there because his passing can spring the counterattack. But we didn't need, we get the energy. You want the energy and industry that McTominay and Fred provide in midfield. There's always a drawback to that, and that's that they don't pass well. So, but in this game, we didn't need the passing. It was as soon as you get the ball, you could just take it and go yourself. Like, we didn't need that outlet pass. So just every single aspect of this was very well planned, and it all came off without a hitch. Yes, United conceded a few chances on the other end, but you could do that. Like, the thing is, we played very open. Like I said, McTominay's making runs forward that we normally don't make. Yeah. Because you can do that against Leeds. They're a team that, they average about 15 shots a game, but their non-penalty XG comes out to, I believe, 24 goals, and they've scored 22 without not including the penalties. Like, they are, for a team that gets 25 shots a game and good ones, they don't put the ball in the net. So they are a team that isn't really great at finishing. So you can take risks and say, if we give up 4 or 5 chances to Leeds, they're probably going to at most score 1 or 2 of them. But if we play this risk, like, we'll probably score 4 or 5.
Look, and I just want to say as well, while we're on Pogba, because again, typically on Twitter after this game, look what United can do. They've done all this without Pogba and whatever. Let me tell you now, if Pogba would have been on that pitch on Sunday, it probably would have been more like double figures, because with his passing ability and the runs that United were playing, with the energy that we're playing, that is the energy that Paul Pogba's been craving for since he joined this club. He needed players around him that was going to show these runs, that were going to create this space to allow him to play. So, yes, we managed to get the result without Paul Pogba on Sunday, but trust me, I think it would have just been even more emphatic. The beauty of it is, though, Paul, is that we've had opportunity to give Pogba a 90-minute break, which I think at this time of year, with the form that he's in at the moment, is a massive bonus for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Yeah, there's so many dividends that are going to get paid by the way that Solskjaer has been managing the team early on in the season. And it's been rocky at times, and at times it's been more idealistic than realistic. We saw that against West Ham. The 11 that he put out against West Ham, we said to a T, they're all good players, but they didn't so much work well together. And that needs to be worked on. But the fact that, so some of the teams that he's done haven't come off the way we want them to. But you look at the way that he's managed this team so far, it's going to pay dividends down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, mate, definitely. And rotation is key at this time of year. Look, I just want to go through some of the comments. Thanks for putting them in, guys. Mark said, what did we make of Fred? Paulie, quickly on that one. He's your favourite player, mate. What did you make of Fred?
Fred actually probably had one of the worst games he's had for United. He tried to pass forward a lot. He had the highest amount of attempted passes were forward than he's had in any game this season. So he's trying more dangerous passes, and they weren't working as well. He should have gotten a goal late. When you say, oh, McTominay has scored twice, Victor Lindelof has scored today, Dan James has scored today, you're just kind of like, well, who would be the next logical person to score? And you're like, well, Fred would be the real nail in the coffin. But he was good. He wasn't unbelievable, but he wasn't bad either.
Now, our regular viewers of the show, Paulie, will know that before every show, or at least one of the shows a week, we do run a poll question on the @United Happy Hour Twitter page. The poll question that you put out for everyone this week was quite a simple one, really, obviously, given our recent form and the nature of the win at the weekend. Shall we get to it? Shall we have a look what the poll question was for this week? Okay, Paulie. So yeah, like I said,
down, but it's a good comment, and I'm gonna address it in a minute.
Yeah, no, I forgot to take it. Sorry about that. So yeah, the poll question you put out for everyone for this show today, Paulie, was: are Manchester United in a title race? Nice, simple question. And I'll be honest with you, I looked at the result, Paulie, and look, it's tight, and I'd expect that to be tight because I think in every football fan, for every optimistic fan you have a pessimistic fan. For every dreamer that you have a realistic fan as well, and it is very tight. Look, well, let's just start with a simple question to you, Paulie, and I'll answer as well after you. Do you think United are in a title race?
I think it's too early. Here's the thing. I think it's too early to say because we're all getting caught up in the Christmas thing, but it's not really Christmas. Like, usually Christmas comes after August, September, October, November, December. And in the real world, that happened, but this season we didn't have August. So we're 3 or 4 games behind schedule when it comes to Christmas. Christmas usually, Boxing Day usually is around match day 18, 19. It's the halfway point of the season. Yeah. We're not there yet. We are 5 points back, 2 games with a game in hand. You win that game in hand, which is Burnley away. Our away form hasn't exactly been bad this season. So win that game, you're 2 points back. You still play Liverpool twice. Let's say you pull off a miracle, or not a miracle, but let's say you pull one off and you win one and you draw the other. That's 4 points.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility to say that United are in it. There are 2 things, though. Is everybody will tell, but this team has so many flaws, the defense, this, that. They're going to give you every reason in the book. United are 3rd. You know what that tells me? Despite the defense, despite not having a defensive midfielder, a center back, not a right winger, every other team has a flaw there. Every other team has oh yeah, what's going to hold us back from the title? We don't have this guy, and this is an issue. Liverpool has injuries. They're doing really well without them through these injuries, but what happens when they have to go through the festive period? What happens when Kane and Son stop scoring? Where are Tottenham going to get their goals from? Yeah. So, remember, in the grand scheme of things, and think about this, we just got 90 minutes of rest for Paul Pogba.
Yeah.
Edinson Cavani has played like 3 times for us. Donny van de Beek has yet to play like more than 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, all these guys are fresh. These are teams that every year we see teams like Leicester and Everton, those teams just below the Champions League teams that want to make a run. Yeah. Every year we see them start well, and then they go through the festive period. And even if they survive the festive period, we then see January, it unravels. It catches up to them. They start, they'll drop points to Fulham, and they just, once you get tired, once the festive period wears you out, you don't recover from that. No. And this year it's even worse because this year you're getting the festive period, and then it only, we're only adding midweek games this season. And you already look at, so last week we had our first look at midweek games for the teams that weren't in Europe. It was the first time that they had midweek games too. And how many teams looked leggy all weekend? It was terrible football all around the league this weekend. Leeds, who are used to playing this high octane style, and they only played once a week. Yeah, we blew the doors off of them over the final 10 minutes. Like the middle part of that second of the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half, things did get dicey at times. The last 10 minutes, we should have scored 3 or 4 more. West Ham, Southampton, those teams only play once a week. We were the fresher team in the second half, which is why we came back and beat them.
Yeah.
So if we're already fitter than these teams when they were playing once a week, now that they're going to have to start playing a lot more, they're going to get more tired. But also, we've got Donny van de Beek. We've got a very fresh Paul Pogba. We've got a very fresh Edinson Cavani. We've got a very fresh Martial. Like, Martial hasn't played 2 games in a row. I think I don't know if he's played 3 games in a row yet this year.
No, I don't think
we are in a really good position. Now, as inconsistent as we are, so is everybody else. Having said that, the title race kind of ends at Christmas. I know nobody wants to hear this, but, here's the deal. Last 10 seasons, whoever leads at Christmas typically wins the title. 2 out of the last 10 years, only twice in the last 10 years has that not been the case. Now, you could say, well, do you notice anything about who those 2 teams were and what their name was? Because that currently is the team that's in the lead right now. But this is not the same Liverpool team. It is interesting that in the first 18 years of the Premier League, 11 times the leader at Christmas did not win in the first 18 years. And since then, the next 10, it's only twice. So
I think the other caveat you've got to put this year is obviously this is a season like no other, isn't it? And I think that's what I'm holding on to now I currently think that Manchester United can win the Premier League, but that's not saying too much because I actually think there's 6 or 7 teams at the moment that could win the Premier League. So let's not get carried away with that. What I will say though as well is just to be in a title race for this United team up until April, May would be absolutely huge. And I know we'd be so disappointed if we only missed out by 2 to 5 points. We would, of course we would. But I think it would give this squad a huge amount of experience. Look, when we look at this team, definitely in the playing squad, Paulie, there is only one player in there that's had experience winning a title, and that's our goalkeeper, David De Gea. Phil Jones, another one, but obviously he's not involved at the moment with the squad. So these players need to learn what it takes to because the nature of the football and the nature of the games when you get into that last 10 games of the season, Paulie, is different. A lot of the quality goes out the window. A lot of the pretty football goes out the window, and it comes down to a matter of who wants it more. Look at the season when Manchester City and Liverpool were going head-to-head in those last 10 games. Some of the football at times was awful. I mean, the Man City-Leicester game where Vincent Kompany has to score a screamer from 30 yards says it all. Normally City would have, the way they were playing that season, would have won that game 3 or 4-0. But City were nervous. Liverpool were nervous. So when nerves come into play, you need to go a different game.
Look at 2008 when we won the league and the Champions League. We only won 3 of our last 6 games. Yeah. It came down to the final day of the season for the best team in Europe. We drew 2-2 to Middlesbrough. Yeah. It gets nervy. And this great comment from Mark is, it's too early and maybe we should reevaluate in January. It's not so much more also from Andy, let's talk after the Liverpool game. Here's what I'll say. It's not so much the Liverpool and who we've played or not. It's just too early. We have seen, just downplay it. Look, what happened as soon as Tottenham thought that they were in the title race? Because that was a week ago. They got 1 point in the next 3 games. They're already in 6th. Yeah. So for everybody's sake, let's downplay it. What happened? What did Claudio Ranieri spend the entire season doing at Leicester? He was like, you're top of the league. And he was like 40 points. Let's get 40 points, secure safety. Then we'll talk. Then we'll talk about top of the table. Okay. Now we'll talk about the Champions League. Oh, we're 3 points off the top, away from winning. All right. Maybe we'll talk about, maybe we can win. So downplay it. Let's keep the pressure off of them. I wouldn't say we're not in the title race. I would just say it's way too soon to be talking about a title race. We're what, a third of the way into the season?
Yeah, and what I'll say is I just put this comment up, Paulie, because I think it's quite a nice comment. The possibility of Liverpool winning a 20th title is not going to go down well in the club. I'm sure it's in everybody's head. And one thing I just want to say on that, and I'll come to you on it as well, is wouldn't it be nice if for a change, we can have a say on whether Liverpool win this league or not. Because for the last certainly the last 3 years,
we did.
We've been
points off them 2 years ago,
or I hope Leicester can beat them, or I hope Tottenham can do it. Why can't we be in control of that destiny for once? That would be nice.
Right. You want it to be us. We did take points off of them 2 years ago, which ultimately cost them the title.
But
so we did have our say in it. It's just you want it to be. You want it to be. I want us to win. Not I'd rather Chelsea win, or I'd rather. You know what? If it, maybe I could stomach Mourinho winning because it'll really highlight how poor the Glazers and Ed Woodward are if he could win everywhere but at United, even though I despise him. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to just say, I want United to win it. Like, we're there.
Like Gary Neville once said, when it comes to picking who you would rather win the league, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, it's like choosing a guy to take your wife, isn't it? You know what I mean? You don't want any of them to do it. You know what I mean? You don't want anybody to win. So I agree. And it would be nice if, for once, look, we might not be able to stop them. I doubt we have the firepower. And I do agree with a lot of the comments that are coming into that. I do think you've got to wait until, people are saying January. I think even later than that point.
February, March
time, then you'll know.
It's too early in the season, but let's take a step back. Grand scheme of things. December 2nd, we were sitting here talking about was the day after we lost to PSG. And you and I came on and we were talking about how, it felt bad right now, but United had just won 4 out of 5 games. And we said, go out and win the next 4 out of 5. It's 5 games later. We didn't win 4 out of 5. We won 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
We got a draw. We lost the game that, kind of a big deal. You'd probably rather have, if you were offered 3 wins,
I took another loss for one of those wins to get
right. If you were offered 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss, I probably would have said I'll lose to City if I could draw against Leipzig. So a bit, a pretty big loss. Not going to lie about that, but ultimately, next 5 games came out 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
and plus a draw. In the league. We haven't lost the game since Arsenal. And what did I say? I said if we won 4 out of 5 in the league, we would be sitting at what? 20. We're at 26, so we'd be sitting at 28 points.
Yeah.
And I said if Tottenham keep playing at the rate that they were playing over the first 10 games, they were going to slip up. We would probably jump them, or I think we would jump them with our game in hand. But look at what happened. We've already jumped them. They're down in 6th. We're in 3rd. So it's really just again, we've got the next 5 games would come out to, I guess, at the end of Watford. If you can win 3, 4 out of 5, you're in a very good position going forward. Is just yes, it sucks to lose a game, but remember in the grand scheme of things, when you look at how everything's going, if we win the next 4 out of 5, hey, that's real good.
Yeah. I just want to say, guys, some people have put some comments in here talking about some rumors regarding January, some opinions on who we'd like to sign. We will get to I will do those questions at the end quick. I will get back to them. So don't come off the thing. We will answer your question. I'm not ignoring them. They just don't fit in with what we're talking about right now, but we will mention at the end. If you've got any other questions about January, do put them into us now, because obviously, before you know it, next week, the January window will be open, so we can touch on that quickly. Paulie, I just want to ask one more thing, though. Another thing that people have always saying when they want to sort of when the media want to sort of shoot us down about this title talk and things is they'll say, oh, look at United fans getting excited because in the last 2 games they've beaten Sheffield United, who are bottom of the league, and Leeds United, who are basically a bit of a kamikaze team and set up the right way for United. But what I want to tell people is, who are saying things like this, is where have you been for the last God knows how many years? Because if you know United, those are the teams that traditionally that they struggle with, Paulie. The teams in that sort of bottom segment in the lower half. So look, we're not getting excited because we're beating bottom of the league and Leeds, but at the same time, as a United fan, you can never take those games for granted because they always seem to be the games that have bitten us on the arse in the past. So I am actually quite happy when we can show our authority and beat a team in the lower half.
Yeah, and there's always a reason. There's always an excuse. And you don't have to go any further than our group chat to know it. Every group chat, every morning of the match is the same thing. As someone says, how are we feeling about tonight? And Mark will always say, oh, I'm buzzing and I think we're going to win. And somebody else will either agree or there's always at least one person who will say, I'm nervous.
It's usually me. I'm a terrible fan for that.
It's I'm nervous. All right. Well, PSG are really good and they're better than us. On paper, they're better than us. So that's going to be difficult. Okay. Leipzig. Well, they're really good and they've got a great system and we've got injuries and, okay. And then there's, West Brom, bottom of the table. That's a team we struggle against.
Yeah.
Okay. Sheffield. Oh, that's a game we struggle against. It's always, either they're good, so we're going to lose, or, we struggle against the bad teams. Yeah, and it's like at a certain point, you got to look at it and be like, we're third. And you look at these poor teams, which, by the way, in games where we have all of the ball.
Yeah.
So I say that I when we say all the ball, you're playing deep. I cut that off at 55% possession. If we have 55% or more, we've only dropped points in one of those games. We've played 5 games this season in the league, and the only one we lost was Crystal Palace. And there's a myriad of reasons for that one. We've won the other 4. So, and since Bruno arrived, we've played, I think, 10, or we've played 15 total, and we've won 10 of them. So this is not nearly as much of a problem as it was a year ago. It's a problem that we've worked to solve. People are just running out of narratives.
You've got to give me some credit for the Sheffield United game, though, boy, because everything was set up there. They hadn't won, I think, all season. They haven't won a game, obviously, all season. I think that game that they lost against Sud actually meant that they broke a first divisional record as well for the longest the team's ever gone without getting a win at the start of the season. So, I mean, it was all there, wasn't it? Because, I mean, I often look at United.
It was a lot. Right, a lot was there.
You see players there. You'll even see players score against us who haven't scored in 10 or they've never scored in the first 20 games, and they play United and they get their debut goal, and it just always seems to happen to us. But I suppose every fan looks at their club the same way, don't they?
That's exactly it. But let me say this, there was a lot of it there. I don't think it was all there because we had just lost to Leipzig and came back and drew against City. And like a very dull, mundane draw, not like we were lucky to get a draw, and not like we were unlucky to only get it. It was it should have ended 0-0. So, if we beat City, had we beat City, then yeah, I would have sat there and been like, letdown game coming against Sheffield. We beat City. We have Leeds next week. That's a big game. Letdown game against Sheffield United coming, but we didn't. We were still we still had to prove a point. There were still so many questions of, are the players playing for this guy? Which you saw them come out against City and they were as organized as can be. And it was very clear that they knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Against that Sheffield United, that wasn't the worst version of Sheffield United we've seen all season either. I actually thought we played pretty well that game, Sheffield United.
Yeah, we played that to our strengths. I mean, remember what we struggled against Sheffield United last year at Bramall Lane.
3-3. Yeah,
for a myriad of reasons, most of which because Fred and Andreas Pereira were our midfield pair, and they couldn't establish possession. And we had a back 3 that featured Phil Jones. So as soon as we changed that up, we actually got right back into the game real quick. Yeah. And then, against them post-lockdown, we were parked outside their box the entire game. So this had the ingredients of maybe we will struggle. We played really well. Like, I remember a couple of weeks ago, Mark asking that question on the show about when I said against Newcastle, how we drew them out and created space in behind. And that's what we did against Sheffield. Like, we had all of the ball, and yet we were able to counterattack. We had 60-something% of the possession, and yet Marcus Rashford had tons of space to run in behind, and we were picking them off with it. So we managed to, in a game that isn't typically our strength, to create our strength out of it. And that's something to look out for going forward. If we can keep doing that, that's going to make us look incredibly dangerous.
So, look, we're going to move on, Paul, because we've got about 6 minutes left, so we will get to some of the questions that people have asked. I just want to go through some of the comments. We've had some great comments tonight, guys. Keep them coming in, and do join us again in the future. Danny Sorio said, tell me about it, Paulie. I'll be bored by March at this rate. GGMU. I know how you feel, mate. Imagine how different the narrative would be if we'd have had a proper preseason. Yeah, that does keep coming up a lot. I don't know how much.
Here's my question for Aditya, not my burner account, is, you know, like in what terms would the narrative be different? Would we have played better in September? Absolutely. Would we have lost to Crystal Palace? I don't know. Would we have lost 6-1 to Tottenham? I don't know. Like, you know, if Martial didn't get sent off because he was unfit and pulled the guy down from behind. He got sent off because he was stupid. Would we have played better against Brighton? Probably. So we probably get a better start. And then, would the narrative be different? Probably, but I genuinely don't know what it would be like.
If that start would have been better, Paulie, look where we'd have been now. I mean, then I think people would have had a right to be excited, because if we'd have picked up 6 more points right now, we'd have been a point at the top with a game in hand. So, yeah, you know.
But it's difficult to say, like, let's pick up 6 points. Like, how often do you start? You know, it's typical to start a season with 3 games in the first month before an international break. How often do we go into that international break with 9 points? You know, 7 or 6, like that's different. But, you know, we're adding 3 points here. So I think it'd be foolish to suggest that we would have gotten another 6 points. But yeah, I think we could have flipped Crystal Palace around.
And on an optimistic note for everyone, just before we finish, I saw somewhere yesterday, Paul, you'll know this more than me. I think we're 9 points better off this season at this stage of the season than we were last season. So, look, when you're trying to close down a 30-point gap, if you can maintain that 9 point and improve that now and the end of the season, obviously the positive there. Just get through more of your comments.
It's not hard to look at why either. Look at who we were playing and look at who was in our team in September. It was Rashford in front of Dan James, Juan Mata, and Andreas Pereira, with McTominay and Fred, or McTominay and Matic behind them. I mean, you had no Martial, no Pogba. Like, it's not a mystery why we didn't score goals.
And this comment sort of answers the question as well, maybe, Paulie. So does it mean that it's good squad rotation why our numbers have improved? We have the players to rotate now. When you look at that bench against Leeds United on Sunday, Paulie, I mean, it was quite frightening, some of the talent. The 9 players on that bench could make a very good... Well, you need 2 more, obviously, to make 11, but that would make a very decent starting 11, wouldn't it? You had the likes of Mason Greenwood, Mata, Paul Pogba, Donny van der Beek, Dean Henderson. You know, the bench... You know, when Solskjaer turns around now compared to when he was turning around last season, it's chalk and cheese, isn't it, Paulie? And therefore, you are going to be more effective rotating with a bench like that.
Yeah, well, for sure. And there's a reason why he's changing things up much sooner in games than he was last year. That was always a thing, like, why doesn't he make changes? And it was, you know, because look at the bench. Like, what's replacing Jesse Lingard for Andreas Pereira going to do? To answer the question, is it good squad rotation that our numbers improved? You know, what numbers are we talking about, Lokish? Are we talking about the wins and the results? Yeah, it's definitely good squad rotation. It's also just the fact that we didn't have a preseason. We needed to get fit. We needed to play, you know, Pogba, Matic, Bruno, everybody started terribly. We needed to let them get games so that they could find their form.
Yeah.
The underlying, we started out so bad that, like, yeah, the numbers were always going to improve because the numbers looked so bad because small sample size. You know, we conceded 6 goals in our 3rd game of the year. That's obviously going to skew the numbers wildly. But you also look at squad rotation and you look at the underlying numbers of our defense, and this says a lot. Like, our defense is unrotatable in that when we play with Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire, and Shaw, we don't concede goals and we don't concede chances. And when you make any changes to that, even if it's just Tellez for Shaw, it gets wildly different and we can't keep the ball out of the net. So that's an area to work on. And fans want to see Alex Tellez because they're tired of Luke Shaw, and fans want to see Axel Tuanzebe because they're tired of Victor Lindelof. But until the ball doesn't go in the net when they're on the pitch, Solskjaer is going to be very hesitant about putting them out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I was a little bit surprised you changed the goalkeeper for Sheffield United. Obviously, the history there with Sheffield United.
So we were wondering why Luke Shaw came off after 60 minutes, and he said, oh, well, he was ill and he wasn't declared fit until this morning. He didn't train yesterday, and he still played him against Leeds instead of playing against Dallas. He went, I'm going to get everything I can get out of Luke Shaw today. instead of going to Alex Tellez.
Yeah, and just to get through the last couple of comments, Paulie, I just want to say, Andy Cleary says, I'm often nervous before games, but man, that's better than being bored. How good are some of the goals? Yeah, look, there's never a dull moment when you're watching United at the moment. And just to finish up, Danny Sorio said, I actually think this team needs to struggle to find one of those classic United comebacks. That's what United are all about. We've always been about doing it the hard way, haven't we, Paulie? You'll often hear players say in the post-match interviews, we're Manchester United, we never do it the easy way, do we? But look,
would you want to though?
No, it's part of the DNA, part of the fabric of
it's
our
not even the DNA. Like, what's more fun? You know, the second half, up until the final 10 minutes, the second half of the Sheffield United match was the most bored I have been watching a United match in a long time. And I said, oh, okay, this is good. It's nice to be bored every once in a while, that we took care of business and now we're just having a kickabout and seeing it out. But it was boring. I wouldn't want to see that every week. And when we were 4-0 up against Leeds, it kind of got a little worried. Like, you know, you could tell that we didn't take our foot off the gas, but we started driving about 25, 30 miles an hour slower. And the atmosphere amongst the people I was watching with changed as well. We were a lot less nervous, and it had a threat of becoming boring again. And then it got a little tight, and then we scored 2 more. And, you know, at 6-1, even when they scored to make it 6-2, it was, who cares? So, you know, it's nice to add some drama and nerviness to it.
So, Paulie, I did promise that, obviously, earlier in the show, that before we end now, we do have to end in the last couple of minutes. We will get through a couple of transfer stories, a couple of transfer questions. We've got one here that I'm going to pick out because it's probably the best one and the easiest one to answer, and we'll finish the show on this one. And it comes from Aditya Prakash. It actually came in right at the beginning of the show, so I hope that you've stayed patient with us, mate, and you're listening. He said, if you could make one signing in January, which position would that be? And can you name that player, Paulie? So let's try and keep it nice and brief. You give a position and a player, and I'll try and do the same as well.
Defensive midfield, Dennis Zakaria. You could sign Declan Rice. You could sign Sander Berg. You could sign Cooper Myers. Like, I don't care. Just someone in that position, please.
Yeah, and look, again, for me, it would probably be another centre-back. It would probably be Dayot Upamecano. But realistically, that's probably not going to happen. So, yeah, I'm with you, Paulie. I think a CDM could unlock the balance of this team. If I had my ideal CDM, it might not be a popular opinion. I'd look at someone like N'Golo Kante. That's, again, probably not realistic.
Get off the show.
But
we can't have people recommending that we take 30-year-olds who have no legs left on this show. No, we're supposed to be better than the internet here. We're supposed to be better than the internet here.
I think you'd unlock the balance, mate. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I don't know. But look, guys, like I say, thank you today for getting involved with us. It's been brilliant to see some of your comments. It's been great to interact with you guys. Paulie, have you got any final thoughts, any final comments for the listeners?
Thank you. Always get involved. Check us out. Have a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Smash that subscribe button. Rate us 5 stars. The show is available now on Spotify. It's coming soon to Apple Podcasts. So subscribe, rate us 5 stars. Thank you very much for listening, and happy holidays.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone.